the 80th Leadership Lives lecture on a very interesting topic on transitioning into the data science as a career. And to do this, we have an illustrious person, Pankaj Rai, who is currently the group chief data and analytics officer at one of the finest and probably one of the world's finest business conglomerates. Now, before I invite him to the platform, let me have the pleasure of introducing him. Now, like I said, he's has got a very illustrious career, starting with his education, where he's done his IIT as well as IIM, IIT Delhi, BTech in electrical engineering, and IIM Ahmedabad MBA or PGDM as it's called as. And then in July or May, between May and July '99, he has also done a diploma from the London School of Economics and Political Science, popularly called as LSE. Now, since then, I think, like I said, he's got a very illustrious career, especially in this area. He has got a diverse portfolio of experiences, including consulting, credit, Six Sigma, strategy, analytics, and digital across financial services and offshoring, and now in one of the largest Indian conglomerates. He started off as a management consultant at Feedback Ventures in Delhi, where he worked for 2 years. Subsequently, he worked in project financing with ICICI in Delhi for 4.5 years. And then he joined the GE Capital's commercial financing business, working as a credit underwriter, portfolio manager, and Six Sigma leader for 4 years. And thereafter, he has got a very illustrious innings at Standard Chartered Bank for operating out of Singapore, where he was a business planning manager for the bank's shared service centers located in India and Malaysia. And then he was with the Dell Bangalore strategy director for the offshore business, where for 2.5 years, and also as internal analytics team for 8.5 years, totally about 11 years in Dell Bangalore. After which he was with Wells Fargo as a global delivery strategy to deliver the 3Es, that is effectiveness, efficiency, and experiences. And the key initiatives included establishing the digital capabilities to enable the bank's digital channels and an internal consulting team to drive global programs. And in Wells Fargo, he has worked for 5.5 years. And currently, like I said, he's the Chief Data and Analytics Officer at Aditya Birla Group, enabling the analytics maturity journey across group companies by solving problems, leveraging data sciences, creating horizontal data platforms, and as also developing people capabilities. Like I said, this is going to be a very interesting topic, because I'm sure all of you must have heard about the famous expression as propounded with Economist magazine: the data is supposed to be the new oil of this century, or maybe the next century as well. And therefore, whoever not just having the data, but also how do you get insights or actionable insights out of the data, and also start strategizing basis those actionable insights. And that's where this lecture is going to be playing a tremendous role. And those of you who are already in the data science career, and those of you who are planning to get into the data science career, I'm sure you'll have amazing experience listening to Pankaj Rai, because it's one of the most sought after speaker, not just in the companies and otherwise, but also TEDx speaker kind of thing. So therefore, we will have a great learning outcomes at the end of this lecture, I'm sure. Over to you, Pankaj.
Thank you, Dr. Chaudhary, and lovely to be here this evening. Welcome, audience. What I will do today is, what we do in the field of data science. We talk about data, insights, and action. So I'll share with you some data, and that data will be, my own life story on what I have done. And insights will be some insights that were generated out of that data for my daughter when she was going to college and taking up her career. So there was some insight generation. And action is what is happening right now, what I'm doing, where I'm working, and what is happening right now. So I'm hoping that when you hear this story of data, insight, action, which I have gone through, maybe it will provoke some thoughts at your end, and maybe it will help you, think through what is it that you want to do. Because these days, I don't think anyone can tell someone else what they ought to do, but others can probably provoke some ideas, provoke some thinking, and that will hopefully help you take better decisions at your end. So starting with my own data, you heard a lot from Dr. Chaudhary, but in my own words, this is what the story, my story, life story, not just the career story, looks like. So I was born on the day Neil Armstrong stepped on the moon back in '69, July. And then I grew up in a factory town, Gorakhpur. Dad used to work in a fertilizer factory. My dad himself was a engineer from IIT Bombay. He had a background of growing up in a village and making it to IIT like the Super 30s. And therefore, his aspiration in life was that his son should go to IIT, because back then that was felt to be the best way to sort of make your career. So after growing up in Gorakhpur for 8-9 years early life, we moved to Delhi because dad got promoted. Dad was a very, still is a very ambitious person, does a lot of things. So he imposed all those ambitions on me and my younger brother of 2 years. So both of us were told from a young age that you both have to go to IIT and become engineers, and we didn't know any better. So then our next 25 years were spent in Delhi. I studied over there, and like I said, my dad is very ambitious and he gets all his goals done. So he made sure that me and my brother made it to IIT. But I think the way all of this happened was that we were made to choose science. I was made to choose both engineering and biology. Just in case I didn't make it to engineering, I should have a backup option of going into biology. I did make that exam, but clearly I didn't have a knack for biology. I would shiver when I had to dissect a tadpole and so on and so forth. It was clear that it wasn't as if I loved engineering, but since I did not like biology, I think engineering was the career option chosen. Post that, I think everyone in engineering college back then used to apply to go abroad, and so did I. Did the GRE exam, and they asked you to write statements of purpose. That was, I think, the first time someone asked me to write something on what I wanted to do. Before that, it was my dad who was deciding what he wanted to do. After writing one or two statements of purpose, I realized that I was not sure that I wanted to continue doing electrical engineering, which I had done. So I stopped doing that. And thankfully, I got admission to IIM Ahmedabad, because that was the other thing people used to do who were not going abroad. They were taking the exam to do MBA. And the reason I said thankfully, because that was the only admission I had. All the other MBA exams were good, but I was not very good in talking. So in the group discussions, I think I must not have scored marks. And in Ahmedabad, they asked everyone that you get 2 minutes to talk. So my guess is that's why I made it. So again, there was no other option. So I took that. After that, again, after the MBA, on the 4th day of placement, which is quite late in the MBA schools, I got 2 jobs. One was with Wipro to sell light bulbs, and the other was to do management consulting with a startup called Feedback Ventures. So my friends advised me that I probably wasn't going to be a good salesperson, so might as well take the consulting path, which seemed at that point in time interesting because consulting firms had not set foot, and it seemed like one could do that. So that's where I went. After a couple of years in consulting, I realized that telling CEOs what they should do, I don't think I had that experience. And then my friend who was in ICICI had me interviewed and get hired because he said, when you lend money to companies, I think there's a lot of learning, and ICICI was a good institution. So I landed up in ICICI thanks to that friend of mine. And soon enough, when I got married, some friends advised that now that you got married, your needs will go up. Why not work for a multinational? And one of my friends who was in G Capital again got me into there, and I got a job over there primarily because it was a multinational company, get more money and so forth. Then G was quite a fantastic institution. It was not just about the financial services. It had many other things that I learned from there: Six Sigma, leadership, about dealer behavior, so on and so forth. And then this whole boom of offshoring was starting to begin, and someone from G had gone to Standard Chartered Bank, starting up their back office operations. So I was invited to join there. Spent a year in Singapore setting up these offshore centers, and that person whose name is Rumi Malhotra, he was my boss there. He moved to Dell in Bangalore, and he said, why don't you come from Singapore to Bangalore, because Dell is starting up, and we can apply the same knowledge that you have there. So that's how I moved to Bangalore in 2005. Did some strategy offshoring work. And then after that, someone in Dell in Austin said that we have been doing a lot of call center back office work in Bangalore. Why don't we do data analytics? And this person knew me because I was doing strategy work here. And he said, we want to start Dell Financial Services Analytics work, and you worked in bank, and why don't you pick that up? So I ended up starting that DFS analytics work. And the need for analytics grew, and many other teams came in, and that team grew rapidly. And I spent a number of years there. And then some of my friends had moved to Wells Fargo, and then they said, you worked in banks before, and Wells Fargo is setting up, and come over here. They want to do some strategy work. They want to set up some digital teams. So that's how I landed up in Wells Fargo after 11 years in Dell. Spent 6 years there. And then another friend of mine who was in Aditya Birla, he was leaving. He said, "I've set up this data science team, and it's a great place to work. And why don't you come over here?" And that's how I am. So I think if you look at this story, in my case, I wasn't planning anything. I was pretty much choosing between either there was no option. There were two options, and one of them didn't look good, and the other, I didn't know any better, so I took it. So it wasn't as if I was choosing options. I was maybe moving away from something which wasn't looking good, and so on and so forth. And in most of these cases, some friends of mine were saying this might be good for you, and I picked it up. So decision making was quite binary, and happening at the behest of my friends, and not some grand design on how to make a career. But overall, things have worked out so far. So when my daughter was going to college, that was about 5 years ago, I was asked by my wife that I should tell her what she should do. How should she think about her career? And that is when I thought that how do I distill all my experiences into what have I learned? What insights can I gather from my experiences of working, and can I share with her? Because I didn't think that telling someone what courses to choose would be good advice when there are so many options. I thought maybe I can create some kind of a framework based on what I have seen. I also thought that why not derive this framework based on some of the macro trends that I have observed in my life. So I thought, since I'm an engineer and an MBA, let me derive a framework based on supply and demand, which is to say, what is it that will be in short supply and high demand, and if we were to acquire those things, it's always good. So that is what I did. So let me share that framework with you and the assumptions that went behind it. So I think the first trend that I saw in my lifetime during my career from 91, 93, when I graduated to pretty much up to now, was a trend of globalization. Free trade, globalization have been the buzzwords. I think lots of multinationals have come to India. Many of us have gotten good jobs. So over these decades, I think everyone has benefited, because we all know that free trade and barter helps everyone. So a lot of wealth creation has happened, a lot of benefits have happened, and I would say me and many people in my generation benefited from that. Lots of rapid growth has happened. But I think this whole globalization is likely to now turn in the other direction, which is sort of a bit of deglobalization. And the reason for that is that the value that globalization created has not been shared equally, down the pyramid. You have trillion-dollar companies, you have, billionaires, but there's still, lots of people under $2 a day. So you look around at the wave of nationalism is sweeping the entire world. Every country that you go to, for one reason or the other, there is a bit of unhappiness where people feel that they haven't gotten the benefit of globalization, and some people have kept it to themselves, and which is the reason the politicians, whether it is a autocracy or a democracy, you will notice that they are taking actions to sort of create a bit of a nationalistic sentiment, to say that, yeah, we will not allow either outsiders to take your jobs or immigrants to come in and take your jobs, and so on and so forth. So that sentiment is there. So I think that the future is likely to become more deglobalized. People looking inward, thinking about themselves, not about everyone else. Now that is the supply side. What does the world really need? So when I look at all the global problems in the world, whether it is terrorism, global warming, any of those, none of those problems can be solved unilaterally. All of them require collaboration. Nothing can be done, by one country. Similarly, if you look at the opportunities in the private sector, whether you take Amazon or anyone else, everyone is benefiting through collaboration, ecosystem. No company is an island. It's all interconnected. So when I put these two together, that the world actually needs, both from a public sector, private sector perspective, much more collaboration. And I think what is actually happening on the ground is people looking inward, more nationalistic, more looking for yourself and not everyone else. I think what is likely to be in short supply and high demand is likely to be the first C, which to me is compassion. And compassion to me is really thinking about other variables than just yourself. which is the environment, which is the other ecosystem players, and so on and so forth. And therefore, I believe that folks who will create their own personal optimization equation, including many more variables, including apart from just maximizing your own, self, I think they will have a longer way to play, because the need of the world is more compassion, and I think what is happening is the reverse. So that's my first C. So this will be a 5C framework. So the first C is compassion based on this trend. I think the second C is derived from the point that choices were very limited. If you saw my story, between science and within that commerce, and then later on in my jobs, and even otherwise, we had two brands of toothpaste, for Hens Colgate. We had two brands of cars, Ambassador and Fiat, two brands of scooters, Vespa Lambretta, and things like that, right? And they were long waiting lists. So I think we were in a very supply constrained economy. So I think the mental model of making choices in such a situation was, just take what you get, because the other thing may not be available, because it's a supply constrained economy. So I would just say, okay, between biology and engineering, I just took one because I didn't like the other one, and there was no third choice. And similarly, between those two jobs and between many other such choices. So I think the mental model of a supply constrained situation is look for trends, spotting trends. What is the trend? What's selling? What's going on? And therefore, if you did that, you were grateful, you were happy, because there were very little option. Now, what has happened now is that we are in a much more abundant economy. There are too many options. In food, there are so many options. In news, there are so many options. In career, there are so many options, right? So I think our mental model of the past, which said that just grab what you get, will not be suitable anymore. Trend spotting is not a suitable thing. If you just think about the two things that we consume, which is food and news. If we consume too much food, we'll be obese, and if we consume too much of news, we just go mad. And to some extent, that is happening, because the older mental model of grabbing what you have is being applied in a new world, which has changed. So what is the mental model that you need in this abundance world? I think instead of trend spotting, which is looking at outside and figuring out what to do, I think we have an opportunity of trend setting. Which is to say, what is it that I am good at, and can I do that? And if you look around, lots of people are figuring out totally new things to do, and they're able to do that. So the second C to me is really your own conviction, saying, okay, what is it that I want to do? What is it that I am good at? What can I play in? And I think that can be derived not from trend spotting, but doing some experiments in introspection and figuring out what you are good at. So I think that's the second C, conviction, which is in short supply, because people are applying the old mental model of trend spotting, while trend setting is an opportunity which is being ignored. So that's the second C. I think the third C is related to the linearity of the world that I grew up in. And in that linear world, continuous improvement and Six Sigma were the buzzwords. I was in GE and we did Six Sigma, and Toyota did Six Sigma and beat Ford and General Motors, because they would do improvements on a daily basis and they became better. But then Tesla came along and changed the game. So I think the third C really now is not related to the linearity, but the multidimensionality that is available. So the third C really is creativity, that if you have to use a term of continuous X, then that is continuous reinvention, and which reinvention basically means that it's a multivariate equation. It's not a single linear equation that you just improve in one direction, which is what Toyota did, and then Tesla came along. So the third C is creativity, which is in short supply and high demand. So if you look at these three, which is compassion, which is thinking about everyone else in your optimization equation, conviction, which is figuring out what you're good at, and creativity, which is thinking multidimensionally. These are the three C's that I derive based on the trends that I had observed, and I shared it with my daughter and my wife, and they were reasonably happy with that. But 2 years later, when I checked again, it was forgotten. So I thought maybe there is something missing in these three C's. So I thought a bit and added two more C's to it, one at the beginning and one at the end, to make it a 5C framework and more of a circular flywheel type of a framework. That's not one way; it is feeding off each other. So if you think about that, the first C really is curiosity. It begins there. You've got to be curious. You should be asking questions. You should be thinking about things. That curiosity will lead to the second C, which is compassion, where you have a much more broader worldview, and you are incorporating all those variables, whether it is environment, shareholder. I mean, think about every stakeholder into your equation and not optimizing for yourselves. That's your second C of compassion. And then the third one kicks in. When you have that compassion, what is your own conviction on where do you want to play? So I think they are in some ways related. So curiosity gives right to compassion, compassion gives right to your own conviction, and that conviction also gives right to the creativity which you apply. And then the last C, the fifth one, is communication. When you talk about it, if you're a product manager, you are launching that product and getting feedback, and you get feedback, your first C, which is curiosity, gets back in. So it's more like a circle. Curiosity leading to compassion, your own conviction, creativity, communication, and back to curiosity. So it's more like an Amazonian flywheel, which is in motion and continues to sort of go faster and faster as you get that. So that was my, 5C framework, which I thought was my own insight based on my life journey, which I shared and I continue to share with all others. Now, how do you apply this framework? While it might appear, theoretically very good, so let me take an example of what is happening in my current company. I work with the Aditya Birla Group, lead the data science team. How are we thinking about the future? How are we thinking about what value can be created? Now, to get there, many a time we think of our roles and our careers from the lens of what we have studied or what identity we have. So people will say, I'm a data scientist or a data engineer or I'm a physics person or whatever. I think we all derive our identity from the study that we have done. I think what is starting to happen is that the world is becoming far more complex, and specific functions or specific skills are getting obsolete very quickly. I think the best way to imagine this reality is look at a company like Amazon. Because Amazon, I think, to me represents a new age company where the traditional measures of defining a company don't apply. So if you were to ask which industry is Amazon in, it used to be in books, then it became something else and something else. So to some extent, the industry definition doesn't hold true anymore. If you were to think about the org design, they may not follow traditional org design. They'll have two visa teams. If you look at the way they work, they are very unique way of working, saying, first you think about, what is the launch letter of your product and then work backward and things like that. Then they have these 14 leadership principles based on which they think that the organization launch. So very, very different from what traditional companies are. So I think the point that I'm making is that some of the rules, old rules, do not apply anymore. So in our company, what we have said that all of us, our job is to help business become better, make an impact, right? Transform businesses. In fact, the terminology that I used to use, or we all used to use in our team when I was in Dell in the analytics team, was that no one is interested in big data, but everyone is interested in big impact. That was the terminology which was used. That at the end of the day, the measure is business success. The mechanism to business success can come through any measure. And if you have the best data scientist or best whatever else, but if you're not able to translate that potential energy into kinetic energy, which is business outcome, then it's of no use. So therefore, the whole context in which you work is important. So what we are trying to do within the Aditya Birla Group today is to say, we are here with some specific skill sets, in this case, data science and data engineering. But our job really is to apply these skill set in a way that the businesses can benefit and the businesses can transform. So the way we are applying this is utilizing again a framework, and that framework has three layers. The top layer really is what we call create a digital ambition, which is to say, if you're a business or a function or whoever, you have an ambition on what you want to achieve. It could be anything, which is your strategy, which is your 3-year goal or whatever. Now you think about and you do some workshops and talk to people like us or any others to say, what is it data, digital, new technologies can do for you, and where all it can be applied. So if you're a manufacturing company, it could be in the area of logistics, supply chain, energy, predictive maintenance. And if you are a e-commerce company, it could be on the marketing sales side and so on and so forth. So you translate your business strategy into a set of initiatives with data and digital, which really represents all the new technology that we have can solve. Now you stratify those into small, medium, large, and we call them enable, optimize, and transform. So you do that. So basically the idea is that you have a business goal. It can be done faster if you were to utilize some of these new technologies. So that's step number one, which is at the top, that we call about the digital ambition. The bottom layer is all about technology, which is using technologies like AI, AR, VR, blockchain, any of those to solve these problems. So you have to have this technology layer to solve problem. In the middle layer, which we call is the operating model, that you have to scale and sustain whatever you've done. It has to be sustained. If you have a model, it can drift. You've got to make sure that someone is taking care of it. Scaling means that you may have done it in one division or one department or one factory. You have to scale it. So I think that the operating model really consists of things related to talent, organization structure, design, governance, all of those soft aspects to make sure that things that have been done are scaling and sustaining. So the way we articulate this model of digital ambition at the top, operating model in the middle, and the technology at the bottom is to say these are all ways of thinking, which is the top layer, ways of working, which is the middle layer, and ways of doing, which is the bottom layer. Now, what we see is that a lot of people are not focused on the ways of doing. So if you're a data scientist, you are very interested in solving a data science problem. If you're a data engineer, you are trying to do feature engineering, trying to create ML models, putting them in production. So our bottom layer really has projects and platforms. To us, platform is basically distilling those that projects that we have done into something that can be reused by other businesses. So projects and platforms lie at the bottom layer, and that's the ways of doing. And a lot of effort goes into doing projects. Projects could be in the area of, again, like I said, supply chain, logistics, machine maintenance, product quality, marketing, and so on and so forth. So we do have a lot of projects. We do have a lot of or developing lots of platforms and logistics procurement and so on and so forth. So that's that. But when you do those projects, where do they come from? And that is where your ways of thinking at the top on continuously determining what is worth doing comes into play. Because many a time we tend to work on projects and platforms or doing applying our skill sets and knowledge. But if it has not filtered through the right strategy path, then we may be working on things which are not critical, not very important. So therefore, that whole top layer of ways of thinking where the organization, the department has to ensure that they are revisiting what is worth working on, what problem is worth solving. Because many a times, we all focus so much on solutioning that we don't spend too much time thinking on what is worth solving. And then the middle layer, which is the way of working, is very critical. And the way of working is not just the agile way of working that we do to ensure that we are continuously evolving, but also setting systems and processes in place in the organization where you're hiring the right talent, you're putting in the governance mechanism, you're having the right HR policies to encourage, experimentation, risk taking. You're having the finance processes which allow you the budget. You have people who are allowing you to, collaborate with, let's say, startups, which is all that we do. So all of these, middle things, which is the operating model or the ways of working, are very critical. So the way we are working with all functions, businesses, whoever, is to say, our team is a coach and a player. We are a central team. We'll work with all of you, but we want to make you self-sufficient. We want you to strengthen yourself, and we are here to help. And the way we help is that we help them, develop that digital ambition, determine those projects, and from those projects, the few that are very, unique and innovative, that we and our team works on. Or if there are things that are having replicability across the group. So those are the two criteria we use to work on projects: uniqueness or replicability across the group. Other projects, we say that we'll either get you partners or we'll train your people so that you can develop it yourself. So that's the first part, to do some of those projects. As these projects get done, some of those features become reusable and they start to solidify in form of a platform. So platforms right now for us are logistics, energy, procurement, predictive maintenance, product quality, and customer side, CX side of it. So that is how the platform part of it. But we are then helping people with hiring the right talent, developing the right ecosystem, finding the right partners, and so on and so forth, and scaling and sustaining what they're doing. So I think all in all, the way we think about, or the way people in our groups is thinking about this whole data and digital, is to say it's a means to an end. And if you are, and if I look at some of the data science people that have joined our team, initially they were all purely data scientists or data engineers, but over time they've started to understand that where to apply their skill set is also something that they need to learn, which is to say, how do you start to work with businesses to create that digital roadmap, digital ambition? And that's the role that some of them are picking up. Then there also become the idea that, once you might have done the project, but how do you sustain, how do you scale, what type of, organization you need to create, what kind of, governance you need to create, and so on and so forth. So I think the career path or the trajectory you're learning that our data science and data engineering people are having is that you've got to, over time, go beyond your domain and learn why are you doing what you're doing, because what you learn is how to solve problems. What you need to learn is how do you decide what is worth solving, And once you have solved something, how do you make sure that it is sustained and continues to evolve? So I think that's the journey that our own people are going through. Folks in our group companies who don't have data science background, but they have business background, they are also trying to learn how to utilize some of these skills, right? So I think there are people who are data scientists, they are learning business and some of those things. People who are on the business side who don't know it, they are trying to understand where is it that they can apply, how do they work together. So I think over time, what we are expecting is that there'll be people who are more closer to the business, who have a very good understanding of what the business or the function is all about. And then there'll be people who are far more closer to the technology and all of that. I think the collaboration between the two is critical, because it is hard to imagine that everyone can know all of those things. While it's good to know broadly all the things, but everyone will be an expert in something. So I think the general theme emerging in our group is that you've got to be good in something, but you also need to know how to collaborate with other skill sets, because the final impact that your work will create will be with the help of others. So you might be a data scientist, but then you'll need a data engineer, and your project will be working in the context of a business user who will be using it. Its sustenance might be happening because there's someone in HR who's trying to give the right guidance. There's someone in finance who's giving you the budget. There's someone in procurement who's helping you negotiate a deal with the startup, who's bringing in some skill set and so on and so forth. So I think this whole idea that while you may start with one capability or one skill set, but over time you got to learn to collaborate, because only as a team can the impact be created. So in general, the thinking or the career pathing that we are observing and we are recommending is that find something that you are good at through experimentation. So make sure that you remain good at it and do that. But also learn all the other skills that are required, because eventually only when the business accepts it, uses it, outcomes happen and so on. And we have stringent mechanisms to measure the impact on what was done, how the process was changed, how the impact in dollar terms can be measured, and so on and so forth. So I think with that, I will pause and look for questions. I thought I will just share some of these stories and what we are doing. But I'm sure all of these lessons need to be applied in the context of different individuals who might be on the call at different industries and different backgrounds and so forth.
Thank you, Pankaj. I think we have quite a few questions. Let me take the first one, but not necessarily to do with data science, but then this is a question from Rajiv. And his question is related to what, according to you, the field of edtech space will evolve by 2027. Thank you, Rajiv.
The field of which one did you say, Dr. Satish?
EdTech.
EdTech.
Yeah.
I think imagining how anything, any industry or any function or any company will evolve is quite hard, because if you think about the fundamental principle in today's world is this whole agile way. If you are a product manager, unlike the waterfall world where you were able to predict a 3-year roadmap of a product and then deliver it based on timelines, today's product managers are looking at data, looking at feedback, and evolving the product. I look at people's careers also as a product. You as a human being are a product. You got to look at feedback from the market, and every 1 year, 2 year, whatever, think of what new features you want to add to yourself to continue to remain relevant. And therefore, this can be applied even to an industry. So just like it can be applied to a product or to a human being for their career, I think the same applies to an industry. So if you look at EdTech as a combination of various individuals, various companies, I'm sure they're also going to, look at all these feedbacks and go from there. And I think it's very hard for anyone to predict a long-term view on where any of these things will land. I do think that education is a very, very critical need. It is going through a lot of disruption in so many different ways. Just sort of a news article I read yesterday. Caltech University, which is very well known for its STEM curriculum, said that we don't need to have people who have studied maths and science in their graduate degree, because there were some needy students who felt that they didn't get the opportunity, but they still wanted to apply to Caltech. So they said, okay, you can go to Salman Khan Academy and take some certification course, and we'll okay with that, and then we'll of course test you and hire you and so on. I think our own Indian new education policy is trying to do a lot of things. From whatever I heard, my children are grown, so I'm not focusing too much on that, but from whatever I heard from folks who have young children, I think they're trying to abolish that whole in the 11th and 12th that we choose. So I would think that 10 to 15 years of time, the whole world of education will change based on not just the philosophy of it, but the technology, but the delivery. So like I said, these ways of thinking, ways of working, and ways of doing, all three are changing at the same time almost everywhere. We sometimes don't notice it. I think if we were to notice it and take control of all three, I think then we will be in the winner category. What tends to happen is we tend to get focused on the ways of doing, forget that there are experiments happening or things evolving on the other two circles. It's almost like this Simon Sinek, who I really like, and he has a video called the Golden Circle. He has the why in the middle, why in the center, how in the middle, and what in the outside. So he says the why, how, what is the equation everywhere else. So unless you know the why, you can't just act on the what. And most of us are reacting based on the what. We see the outside, what someone is doing, what some company is doing, we act. But unless you understand the why of what they are doing, for example, Amazon to me, their why is customer obsession. Their how is their 14 leadership principles. The what is what you see. But if you start to copy their what, it's not copied. Just like you could not copy Toyota's continuous improvement system, it's the culture. So I do think that these types of changes are happening. EdTech as a sector, I think segments of it, like the K-12 segment will go in a different direction. The high segment will go in different direction. But clearly, I think monolithic, long-term, degrees and all of that are not going to happen, because we have seen that every industry, everything which started as a monolithic, starting from the mainframe computer, has become atomized. So I do think that the world over the years is becoming atomized in every structure that you think about, whether it is a physical structure or a software structure. Even organizations are becoming more bottom up, two pizza team, and so on and so forth. So the edtech sector is also a pretty vast sector. It also spans different geographies. US will be different from Europe, different, and K-12 will be different from college. Continuous education will be different. So hard for me to take a broad brush view of the edtech sector, but I do think that all of them will undergo a lot of change, because the world has changed, and you can't not change the education of it.
Yeah. No, well said, Pankaj. I think quite a few questions. Let me just start the second one. And this is a question from Mr. Gopal Krishnan. It's a very generic one, but I think it will be good for everybody else as well. And his question is, how do you adopt when you climb up the ladder? And when we are moving to different organizations with different style of functioning from the earlier ones. Thank you, Gopal.
Yeah. So I think there are a couple of different ways to think about it. In the past, so I have again a 3P sort of a framework which I have observed in my career. So we were very, process oriented people. We would focus on process. Process excellence was the key. That is what I saw in GE. Then product came along. I saw product orientation in Wells Fargo and many others. I think to me, the third P, which is the higher level Maslow's hierarchy, process still stays, product still stays. But I think the purpose is becoming the third P on the top. So I think people are becoming, or the companies are becoming far more purpose oriented. So I think employees or team members who were earlier process oriented and became product oriented, if they become more purpose driven and utilize the product and processes, I think they will succeed. I think that when you and I have moved from so many different organizations with different geographies, from where they were headquartered in different industry, all of that. I think the one thing that doesn't change, like I said, which is the purpose that they are in it and how can you contribute. So I think being purpose driven, being outcome driven, and creating a purpose where you can include all the others and take them along. To me, that has been my sort of approach. In some ways, it is also akin to the political slogan that we have, which is "Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, Sabka Vishwas, Sabka Prayas." To some extent, if you think about everyone and everyone is contributing towards a common goal, to me, that is the secret to success. And many a time, like I said in my 5C framework, if your goal is just about yourself, you can only go so far. But if your goal is far transcending, that anyone else can think about, then so many people can be accommodated in that vision. So I think it starts with the vision and the purpose. Usually, most companies do give, a large enough vision and a purpose to play with. I think it's for us to interpret that and create that vision and purpose for ourselves, for our team. Because if it is big enough, then we can incorporate so many more people that all these politics and all these, issues will not happen. At least that has been my experience, to try and create a big vision where so many of us can get consumed and still not be able to achieve it, and we're all just working towards it versus fighting with each other.
Absolutely. This is a question from, I think we're getting into specifics now, Pankaj. I think we have quite a few questions there in that space. Now, first one in that order is from Anshul Goyal. His question is, how will data science change the life of an Indian consumer in the next 10 years? Thank you, Anshul.
I think the biggest thing that is happening around us is this whole terminology which we use called the digital public infrastructure. I think nowhere in the world, and some of you might be hearing what Morgan Stanley is saying, or what Nandan Nilekani is saying, or what G20 is saying, that the Indian government is utilizing this digital infrastructure very, very effectively. In fact, I attended a presentation very recently, and they were saying that digital technologies are being used in China for surveillance on their citizens. They are being used in America in some ways for the capitalism. It is being used in India for inclusion of the bottom of the pyramid. So I think the purpose of using the technology in all these three geographies are quite different. And like I said, the purpose in India is so big and so broad that anyone and everyone will get included in it. And we have so far seen only the beginning of it.
Yeah.
All of us have just seen the Aadhaar and the UPI, but there is so much more, vertical data stacks, and we are working with in so many industries that we look at ONDC, which is going to disrupt how the retail will work. There is ULIP. ULIP is all the logistics platform, which has got all these fast tag data that we are analyzing, and so many more to come. There's a health platform. Some of you may have taken the ABHA ID. So we are in all of these businesses, in all of these spaces. We are working to see what is it that the government is promoting, because we don't want to reinvent the wheel. The platform that we will create, we will take advantage of what the government is already put in place. Just like we are all taking advantage of KYC because the account aggregator platform is already there. So a lot the government is doing will be very beneficial in the long run, and the interaction effect will be very huge. Right now we are just seeing one off, oh, this has come, how can we use it? But we all know that when many technologies start to collide with each other, the permutation combination is where the magic is. So as they say, the Cambrian explosion is yet to come. So I think that the Indian consumers, with the combination of what the government is putting in place and what the entrepreneurs, both large corporates and startups, are trying to do. Like I said, very hard to predict for 10 years, because this Cambrian explosion and the hockey stick curves are very, very hard to predict. But clearly, the purpose is to include the bottom of the pyramid and bring them into the economic system. I think we will have a far more inclusive society. We are already seeing this payment and Aadhaar and all doing that, but much more to happen. So I do think that I'm very, very positive about the future 10, 20, 30 years, where everyone in the society will get more included in this economic system.
This is a question from Mr. Azmin Memon. His question is, what can be the roles to look for after having experience in sales operations with PG in data science? Thank you, Azmin.
Yeah, I think, like I said, that to me, this approach is hard to sort of follow, because these days I hear a lot of people that, what course should I do? Or I have done this course, what can I do? I don't know whether I can relate to those questions. I think what is most important is to what is out there to be done, and can you do it? So to me, I think it is more of a pull model required to say what are the things that need to be done, and what are the things that you are good at, and that is a combination which will play out. So I don't think we should become too focused on the function that we are good at, which is sales operation, or the degree that we have taken, which is PD in data science. They are all ingredients for you to figure out whether you will be able to succeed in that. So one, you have to introspect and see what do you like, what else can you like, and two, you have to also look at what type of roles are out there. So I think it will be always be a combination of the market evolving in a certain way and opportunities coming up in terms of what to study. Because today you can't study all the courses. How do you choose? So I would say it's like the same problem of you can't play all sports. So over time in your life, you did try a few sports and then you settle for one. You still may not know how to play ice hockey. You might have been a world champion in that, but you didn't get an opportunity. So I think even in our careers, I don't think any one of us will ever figure out that one best thing that we are good at. But I think it is our duty to figure out what are the things that we are good at, or at least to know what are the things that we are not good at. Maybe not everyone will be good at deep data science or data engineering. There's a lot of fever these days that everyone is trying to become a data scientist and data engineer. They may not be good at it. And secondly, I think that as technology progresses, it becomes far more sophisticated, where you don't need too many people to know about it. When I take the example of an automobile, I think when the automobiles came into being, everyone knew everything about automobile. They could even repair the car. You can do everything about it. Today, if Tesla goes for a toss, you can't do anything. The driver or the user can only figure out how to use it. They don't know how to repair it. So I think today a lot of people are deep into technology. I look at it as when the car came in, everyone knew about the car, but now no one needs to know about the car. So I don't know whether everyone will need to know about all these deep technologies that people are learning today, because the technology will progress. It will be packaged in a way that it will be pervasive, and you don't need to know the inside of it. Some people are designing it. Of course, there are automobile engineers who will know it, and similarly engineers will know it. But not everyone needs to know it. But I think a bigger opportunity will be, what do you want to do with it? Do you have a big business acumen to figure out how to monetize it? So I do think that this ways of doing focus, which is there right now, has to give way to ways of working, ways of thinking focus also, to say, what am I wanting to do? What can I do? How can I shape my career? Because these tools will become sophisticated and made available very quickly. It's almost like saying that, people are right now who are writing code, they are like the unskilled engineer. CNC machine will come and not need so many unskilled engineers. So how do you know what to make out of that CNC machine is the question you need to ask. So I do think that lot more of soft skill, business skills, opportunities where you can monetize, those types of skills will be critical. Of course, if you are someone who's very technical and who love that, then you can certainly do that. But I think you have to continue to evaluate where the opportunities are and what you're good at.
Now, this is a question from Mr. Munesh Kumar Sharma. His question is, I'm learning the Art Tableau and Art Studio course, but facing the problem when I'm applying in real world. How much time is sufficient for data science course, 1 year or 2 year to become a professional data scientist? Thank you, Munesh.
Yeah, you know, and I'm sure lots of you will ask me about data science and data engineering. And if you heard my story, I have no idea. I don't know data science. I have never made a statistical model in my life. I haven't done any data engineering. The last time I programmed was in Fortran 30 years ago in my, IIT days. So I have no knowledge of the ways of doing, if you may. Now, I'm not saying you need to sort of pick up that part of me and apply it to yourself. But what I'm saying is that there is no one way to succeed. You may have imagined that someone who's leading a data science team in a place like Aditya Birla must be an excellent data scientist and data engineer. And then, my predecessor was that, but I am not that. So I think that there are many different ways in which people can contribute. I think the reason I'm hired, the reason I think I continue to remain in this job is that I contribute in a different way that plays to my strengths. I think I play in the area of that, ways of thinking, ways of doing, to say, how do I connect to the business? What is worth solving? How should business leaders be thinking about it? How should the users be trained or evangelized to use this capability? So I am playing a lot more on the demand side, demand generation, making the users understand what it is. Because to me, supply will get, automated. We will get supply from wherever it is. So I think that's who I am. So I think you have to also think about that, what is it that you want to do? And it's very hard for me to say how much time it will take for you to become a good someone. It's almost like saying how much time it become a good batsman or a good bowler or a good chessman. Every individual is different. But the more important question you need to ask is, do you really want to be that? Or what else do you want to be after that? And things like that. So I think that's what I would urge, all the people who are asking questions related to courses, to say, who do you want to be and why? And if you become that, then what? Because you will have a 30-year career, 25-year career. You don't want to retire in that one thing that you asked me. What will be your next sprint in your career if you are a product? What do you want to add and why? And those are the questions I think sometimes don't get asked. So I would urge people to ask those questions more.
Now, this is a question from Mr. Ramandeep Kaur, and his question is, what all core skills are required to make transition from data engineer to data scientist?
Yeah. See, in my mind, this whole transition should not be thought about. End of the day, there is a business which is requiring you to help make an impact. Now, whether you make an impact as a data science person or a data engineering person or some other person, or you are someone who's a program manager and who knows how to get a startup to solve this problem, at some level, no one cares. End of the day, people are here to get the job done. And if you can get the job done through your own skill, or through someone else's, or through a collaboration, it's all fine. So I think of it that way, that we should not get too fixated just about some of these things. I think we have to also see how are we connecting the dots with others. Because if we know all of these things, and whatever they are, but we have no idea how to connect these dots to others, it will remain potential energy and not become kinetic. So I would again urge people to think more collaboration, more ecosystem, making an impact, and no one skill will ever make an impact in the organization. And many a times you will say, I made this model, now my job is done. You made the model, but that model is not working beyond a point. That's no use. Like I said, potential energy, not kinetic, and kinetic only pays. Potential doesn't pay.
Absolutely. Now, this is a question from Mr. Shashank Das, and his question is, what is the impact of AI on this field? How relevant is data science in the age of AI? Thank you, Shashank.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think a lot of people are talking about AI as a public good. So it is a technology, like any other, and it's for us to figure out how best to use the technology. And some people say, is it good or bad? I think technology is always dumb. Whoever invented the knife did not decide whether you should cut vegetable or cut someone's finger with it, and then people decided what to do with that. So I do think that regulations will come and regulate what can and cannot be done or how it should be done. But I think it's for us to figure out how to utilize this technology for making an impact in wherever we are. It could be in our personal life, it could be in our professional life, and it could be in our academic life, and so on and so forth. So I don't think any technology is good or evil. Technology is always dumb. It's the users who are good or evil.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, this is a fairly long question, but then this is a very interesting one from Mr. Chittaranjan Mohapatra. And his question is, good evening, sir. Data science career looks very lucrative. Thanks for your guidance. Very specific questions regarding my career. I have completed my Bachelor of Science with MBA in marketing. I have 16 years of experience as a branch banking customer service. Can I move ahead with data science? Whether after pursuing a data science course, is it helpful to my career? If so, then where it can fit, whether it's specifically to only banking or any other industry. Thank you, Chittaranjan.
Yeah, and I think that's a very good question, because a lot of people who have been working, and people like me, and who have been working before AI came in. So they are having partly FOMO and partly real that I've missed out. This new thing came along, and I didn't study it. What should I do, right? So I think there are several different ways to think about it. One is to say that wherever you are, whoever you are, maybe this technology is already over there. So if you are in branch banking, I think banks are already using these technologies to do something. So are you someone who's using that technology to do something for your customers? If not, can you raise your hand for the next pilot that the bank might be doing, to say, we want to transform banking using AI? Everyone is trying to do those pilots, and there have to be people who are in the operation who understand what is to be done. So many a time people are thinking that whatever they have learned is of no use, and maybe we'll pick up another degree and change careers to something else, right? To me, this technology is there to help improve what you do. It's an enabling technology. So you could be anywhere. You could be an HR person. You can become a better HR person if you knew data science or data engineering. You can become a better finance person. You can become a better supply chain person, because this technology is very, inclusive. It is helping you to do your job better. So I would think that while you may do courses, while you may do any of those things, I don't think, today there are jobs which could be called data science job, but in future, they won't be data science job. Data science will be like Excel. Today, there's no Excel job. Anyone can use Excel. You can be an HR person, finance person, anyone. You can use it. You can be a personal finance, whatever. You can use Excel to do something, right? So think of this AI eventually as a tool to help you do your job better. So whatever you're doing, you're good at it because you have been in that job for a while. Can you try to see how you can either learn something and do something innovative, or raise your hand? Sometimes in large institutions, people are willing to do pilots, and many a time existing people are not willing to do experiments. So if you are the one who says, I'm happy to do this experiment, I want to be the bakra, let me do that. I think those are the types of things people can try and do. And when you do that, you are the one shaping how that technology is used to make an impact on your customer. So I think that's the way I would think about people in various functions to think about this technology.
Just to reconnect with what you said, those three layer framework that you're talking about, Pankaj, right? You said first it is about data, and then about operating model, then you put a technology kind of thing, right?
Yes,
Therefore,
yes,
if you look
yes,
at, if you transpose that one vis-a-vis somebody's
yes.
career, let's say when somebody's building a career, is it good to say that somebody has got to be very good in one specific technology, and the mid-career you're talking about, the operating model, and as you evolve, you become senior leadership position, then you start strategizing or thinking kind of thing. So would it be a good idea to fix, connect these two dots?
Yeah, absolutely. So when we are going and evangelizing this framework with the senior leaders or other group companies who have had no experience to that,
Yeah,
so we tell them that this whole ways of thinking, ways of working, ways of doing. Not all of you. So if you are a very senior person, you don't have to worry about ways of doing. That is something that younger people who have come on, they're doing it. They'll be good at it. But the ways of thinking, how do you want to reimagine the business? You are the best person to say if you are doing something, how can it be done? I just applied for a insurance policy online, and in 5 minutes, the ACO, which is a insurance company, gave me a insurance policy, and it was also into my DigiLocker. Now, if you think about insurance, years ago it was all paper. So there was someone who probably thought that there is this technology which has got AI in it, which has got digital in it. Maybe I can use it to give an insurance policy in 5 minutes, right? So who's the one to think about it? So how do you and the technology person may not be able to necessarily think about it because he doesn't know the
exactly.
customer. So I do think that there are many different roles to be played. This whole ways of thinking or experimenting on what if this, what is that, what can the customer need. Someone has to do that, and someone close to the business has to know that, and they have to know what technology can deliver. So they can, yeah, I think we can do this experiment. Let's try out. Let's try it out.
Exactly.
And then this whole operating model of what type of talent do you need, what type of funding do you need. Someone has to think about that, right? So I do think that there are many roles to be played to make a business impact, and just the data science and data engineering, which is the ways of doing, is a component of it. And not
Absolutely.
everyone has to know the depth of it. As long as you have people in the teams on the company that you are who have that, you can be the complement to them, and together you can conquer. Versus you trying to do the me too. Like I said, in a cricket team, you have to have a wicket keeper, bowler, batsman, all. So if today batsman is in too much demand and you are a bowler, that's okay. You're still a team. Work together. You don't have to also be a batsman. You can
Absolutely.
learn batting a bit. That's okay.
Absolutely. Now we have two more questions. With your permission, I'll take both of them,
Sure.
Pankaj. Right. This is one was again is from Faizan Rahman. His question is: data science and fintech are two of the hottest industries right now. What can be the nature of collaboration that we can expect between the two? And the second question he has is: are there any existing startups doing quality work combining the two fields? That is data science and fintech.
Yeah, I think these days, if you look at any tech, whether fintech, ed tech, whatever, I think two things are common in any of those techs. One is some, cool technology, and the second is data, because that is the way that businesses are getting different, sort of disrupted in the digital world. So you pick up any, look at company like Scriptbox. They sell mutual funds and they do something. I'm sure there's some cool technology, but they're also using data, not just
Mhm.
for the customers, but also of the stocks, right? So I think every tech company will have technology and data and utilizing that to transform the customer experience and the value delivery to the business and so on and so forth. So I think every company that you may think of will probably have that. You may not be able to see that, but in the under the hood, every company will have these two things. So every fintech will be a data company also. They must be using AI. If not, they must be thinking of using AI, because how else would you service your customer? Just technology is not good enough. You've got to have data. You have to personalize. You have to use data to take better decisions, so on. So I think fintech and data science are already embedded, and they'll remain embedded. Now, are companies doing a good job? I'm quite sure. All the startups that are raising funds, I'm sure they are doing something cool. Now, who will succeed over time is always hard to say, because there are so many different companies coming in the same space. Some of them are able to do it better than the others. Some of them are able to raise more funds than the others, and all kinds of things are happening today. These days, the funding winter is there, and some companies may be in a very good state, but they just fail to raise the next round of funding. Just bad luck. And someone else had raised funding before the funding winter happened. So sometimes it's not necessary that you may have the best technology and you'll succeed. The opportunity in the market from a funding perspective and all also play a big role in your ultimate success. So luck does play a role in our career
Absolutely.
success and all the success of companies also.
Now, last question for today evening, with your permission, Pankaj, is from Arijit Jaina. His question is: good evening, sir. I have completed a master's in commerce, and now I'm working with an insurance industry or company. What kind of skills do you think I require? And is my education background going to be a bad bottleneck for the data science professional? Thank you, Arijit.
See, this just in the past I said that even Caltech has said that we don't care what you studied as long as you can show us your skill set. So I think in the digital world there are lots of platforms. There's a platform called Kaggle where data science professionals come and do contests, and there are so many different forums where you can express your digital expertise, if I may say so. So I think your digital footprint today is very easily available. In fact, I am told that some of the big tech companies are not looking at the educational degree, but they're looking at the type of code that you have written, the type of work that you're doing in some of these forums, and they are utilizing that to hire you. So I think today is the best time for anyone who has the right skill set to do anything. Educational
Absolutely.
background is no longer a constraint which used to be a constraint in the past. So I think, but you have to also see that, are you following a fad or are you really going to be good at it? So please do some experiments, try it out, see whether you are really good at it. Maybe you are good at something else. So I do think that we have to figure out what our strengths are. Trend creation or trend setting is what we have the opportunity for. Trend spotting is not good. I see a lot of trend spotting, which, like I said, is a mental model of the past where there were very few things to be done. And if you spotted the trend better than the others, you were better at it. I don't think we should fall in the trap of trend spotting. Today it is data science, tomorrow it will be something else. I think it's more to introspect and figure out what we are good at and use that to sort of express ourselves and apply ourselves. These trends will come and go.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Pankaj. And I think we have already 5 past 7 o'clock. But thank you so much for your time. And given the canvas that it is, I think we could cover quite a bit, especially through a lot of questions, right? And must thank all the participants for wonderful questions. And look forward to hosting you very soon for another topic, Pankaj.
Thank you, Dr. Chaudhary, and thank you, audience, for having me
Thank you
here.
so much. And thank all the participants.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thanks.